All right, so now we're at question number 26 on the ACT English test. Let's begin by reading the sentence as is. Instead, something about the sign touched me. Now, right away, you should notice that this here is a transition word, and all of these other answer choices, well, G and H, have other transition words. What about J? Well, J just takes the transition word out altogether. Okay, so in order to answer this question, we should know how to approach transition word questions as a whole. And if you're not sure how to approach them, then you're going to want to write this down. The first thing we want to do is read before the transition word. Okay, read all the information before the transition word. Next, read after it. Third thing we want to do is input. We want to input our own word. Okay, so if we're going to read before, then we're going to read after it and input our own word, then we don't want this word here to influence our judgment. Likewise, we don't want any of these answers to influence our judgment. We want to be able to figure this out on our own. So let's read before. I'll bracket the information before. I will bracket the information after. And let's figure out what transition word best goes in that spot. Maybe it was a small hole, a clue to vandalism or of a hailstorm. Okay, so whatever it was, there was a small hole and it seems like it was a clue to something, but we don't really know what it was. Something about the sign touched me. All right, so it seems like the author may be adding to his or her point. Something about the sign touched me. Maybe it was a small hole, a clue to vandalism or a hailstorm. Something about the sign touched me. Okay, so if we're not sure what goes in the middle here, we could look at transition words, right? And so we thought, oh, maybe it's adding, but look at these adding words. As well as, moreover, something about the sign touched me. Furthermore, something about the sign touched me. That would be a little far-fetched, right? So it's not quite an adding transition. Why don't you take a look at these others and see if there's anything that you think might go there? Yeah, none of these look very good. So we wouldn't have a transition word that we would need in between these two. In fact, these thoughts go really well together. We're not actually transitioning, are we? No, not at all. We're not transitioning. We're not emphasizing. We're just moving on to the next part. Okay, so we have established that there's no transition word needed. So let's look at the transition words present and see which answer choices we can get rid of. Well, we can get rid of instead, because what does instead mean? It means I had two options and I picked one over the other, right? But we weren't talking about two options here. On the other hand is the same thing. We have two options, or I have two different things that I could do. I could do this, but on the other hand, I can do that. So that would be wrong as well. How about meanwhile? Well, meanwhile is temporal, meaning I'm doing something at the same time as something else, but there was no indication of that. So again, I'm left with answer choice J, which is just get rid of the transition words. Now, it's rare to have an answer choice where we just get rid of the transition word. Most of the time, all four of these will be different words. Okay, so it's very important that you read before, then you read after, and then you input your own word. If you don't follow these steps, right, then you're not going to understand the context that the transition word is supposed to exist in. And you might end up just plugging in the transition words. What you're going to find with transition words is that most of them sound okay. We can't do this by ear. It's not one of those types of questions. We have to understand the context. If we don't understand the context, we won't know what type of transition goes well to separate them. So make sure that you do these three steps in this order if you want to get your transition questions right in the future. Thank you.